Right now I introduce you to Charlie Meadows. Sorry about the staircase, Charlie.
Yeah. Well, Bob, those are very kind words. Believe me, they have to be divided by at least 4 or 5 or something to that nature. The reality is that there are a lot of people that are working really hard together to make changes in many different areas, not only in the state of Oklahoma, but also in our federal government. We're here today to talk about the Federal Reserve and to end the Fed. And I think that there's something I want to try to convey to you. I want you to see and understand the big picture and understand why you can't win a victory or a battle and go home. I wish we could. I wish we could win something and go home and enjoy the fruits of our lives. But the reality is, because of the sin nature of man, every generation must fight for its liberty. It is a never-ending battle. And I want you to see that from the earliest of time. Did we lose our sound? Okay. Okay. Well, if you want to hear me, I can project, but you may have to move a little closer here. We work. Are we working now? Yeah. Okay. Can you hear now? Okay. I want you to know that from the earliest point of time, there have been attempts to cheat, attempts to manipulate. I want to read a scripture to you out of the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 16:11. A just balance and scales belong to the Lord. All the weights of the bag are His concern. Do you realize in the earliest days when they had crude scales, the weights and measures that they would use to determine the value of something were counterfeited from time to time? They put some label on them that was incorrect. At other points in time, they have taken something worthless and covered it by gold and said it weighed a certain amount. The attempt to cheat has been there for a long time, and all the Federal Reserve is today is just a sophisticated modern-day opportunity or method to manipulate and cheat and force the taxpayers of the citizens of a nation to keep the wealthy in power. You see, the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. That's another scripture. Money itself is not evil. It's the love of it when you allow greed in your heart to get to the point that you don't just use your natural giftings and talents to produce wealth, but you're going to use government to destroy one through that which is illegal or improper or immoral so that you might have advantage and you might have more. Our founding fathers spoke ill of banks issuing currency. That's why they gave that authority to none other than the Congress of the United States, who has since then abdicated their responsibility and turned it over to the bankers. They warned us of paper money, and they warned us of bankers issuing currency. Fairly early in our history, we had a central bank. And when Andrew Jackson was running for president in the 1830s, his #1 political slogan was, "Jackson, no bank. Bank, no Jackson." You see, because the next person to serve as president, the charter for the central bank was going to come due. And he promised, if you elect me, I will not sign the recharter of that central bank. And the bankers hated him, and he was elected, and he refused to sign it, and they could not override his veto. So the bankers immediately set out to destroy Andrew Jackson's career as a president. Lincoln also, when he came along, he said, don't let the banks issue currency. But in 1913, we come along to the Federal Reserve Act. And for those of you that may not know, there were two versions of it. You had the Aldrich Plan, which was the evil blue blood Republicans. And then you had the Federal Reserve Act, and that was the good guys. And so they gave us a choice. And some choice it turned out to be. In the early one, there were some safeguards. But slowly those safeguards were removed, one by one, over the years, to allow them to get to the place where they could easily manipulate the currency of our nation and easily move us toward slavery and move themselves toward wealth. When the Federal Reserve was first established, there was a sell job. And I want to tell you the 10 promises that they made in the sell job to the American public to accept that through their elected representatives. Here were the 10 things they said they would do. Number one, we will operate entirely under the direction and control of the President and his appointees to the Board of Governors. Number two, we'll pay interest to the government for the privilege of printing Federal Reserve notes as the nation's currency. Number three, we will perform many banking services for the government free of charge. Number four, they would manage the nation's money supply in such a manner that it would stabilize the dollar, in turn would keep prices relatively stable. Boy, they really succeeded at that one, didn't they? Number five, the act would take the U.S. out from under the control of Wall Street. Boy, they really succeeded at that one. Number six, the Federal Reserve would prevent future depressions and eliminate the boom and bust cycles. Folks, since the creation of the Federal Reserve, there have been 13 cycles of recession, one Great Depression, and another 13 cycles of boom. Some stability. Number seven, the Fed would be a friend and helper to the farmer and to the monetary needs of small business. Yeah, control their lives completely. Number eight, the new system would remain forever decentralized, so each Federal Reserve Bank would have as much influence as monetary policies as the one in New York. I want to tell you a story. I was at the Northwest Republican Club recently, and I was talking to a man afterward. He attended the Mary Fallon thing, and he heard one of, probably somebody out in this audience, holler "in the Fed." And there was a big applause at that. And he said, "What foolishness, what ridiculous foolishness." He said, "I've worked down here, done some work at the Federal Reserve Bank building. All they do is collect and distribute money. They're no control group." Folks, you have to understand, that's all these local branches did. The policies are made in New York City, not at your local Federal Reserve places. Number nine, the Fed would protect American interest against foreign monetary assaults. And number 10, the Federal Reserve System would supervise and expect local banks provide funds where they were pressed as unexpected funds. The reality is the Federal Reserve and all of its promises has been an utter ultimate failure, if that's what you think they were actually trying to do. If you consider what they were actually trying to do, gain control over our economy and make slaves out of us, they've been largely very successful in doing that.